Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson. I'm Tristan and today we're going to look at 3 ToEIC tips that can help you improve your reading score quickly and easily. Now, before we start, make sure to subscribe, like, share, do all those wonderful things. All right, let's get started. The first thing we need to talk about is amongst. This is a very common preposition in ToEIC. It comes up almost every test. Now, the good news is among and amongst mean the same thing. Thank goodness. All right, so what does amongst mean? Amongst means out of. For example, he is the tallest amongst all the people in his family. So, he is the tallest out of all the people in his family. Now, a key thing to notice is that people is plural. When we say something is the most adjective amongst, or something is the least adjective amongst, the noun is usually plural. Let's look at another example. It is the most difficult amongst the questions on the test. So, it is the most difficult question out of all the questions on the test. Now, one more example. Amongst is one of the least used prepositions. So, amongst is amongst the least used prepositions. Okay, so let's look at some ToEIC examples. 131. Pause your screen if you need time. Well, this is saying the decision was amongst the most difficult the leader had ever had to make. So, what we're saying is the decision was the most difficult out of all the decisions the leader had to make. Let's look at another example. Well, this one is just upon. There is no reason to use amongst here. For example, when we use upon, it means as soon as, and it's followed by a noun form. So I could say upon arriving at the event or upon my arrival at the event. But there would be no reason to use upon here. There would be no reason to use amongst here. No reason. Okay, another way to use amongst is one of. Now, I could say Tokyo is amongst the most popular cities in the world. So what this means is Tokyo is one of the most populated cities in the world. Notice here we use something as amongst the biggest, the tallest, the smallest, the most difficult, the easiest. Let's look at one more example. The new Spider-Man is amongst the highest grossing films in history. So the new Spider-Man is one of the highest grossing films in history. All right, let's look at some ToEIC examples. What about number 1? Well, number 1 would be amongst. This year has been amongst the most successful in company history. So this year has been amongst the most successful years. One of. Let's look at 2. There is no reason to use amongst here. So the best answer here is A. I have great respect for her. Now, just so you know, you can show respect to someone, but you have respect for someone. All right, one more. Well, number 3, this is amongst. Okay, so let's look at tip 2. For some reason, ToEIC loves to test people on the prepositional phrase be subject to. Let's look at an example of how it's used. Be subject to means is affected by or could be affected by. For example, anyone providing support to the movement will be subject to a $500 penalty. So, if you support the movement, the government will fine you $500, and fine is a financial penalty. Let's look at example 2. She was subject to harassment while working at the company. So she experienced harassment while working at the company. She was subject to this. This is a prepositional phrase. So let's look at some ToEIC questions. Well, we know it's not B because if I said all employees will be given to blank, that means someone will give employees to someone else. So that would be very strange. If I say all employees will be offered to, someone will offer employees to someone else. And if I said all employees will be required to, after require to, you need a verb. So all employees will be subject to a 3-month probationary period. They will experience this. They have to experience this. Let's look at 127. Well, we know it's not subject because we have by. It's not to. So the best answer would be B. Anyone affected by this decision. The decision will affect them. It is not A because we don't have to. All right, let's look at the last tip. Be aware of prepositions after the blanks. Let's look at some examples. So we look at number 1 and it says blank of the building will take 2 to 3 years. Now we know it's not A or B because we need a noun before of. So a lot of people say, well, construction is a noun and constructing is a gerund noun. Which one should I use? Well, if I say I construct a building, that's fine. There is no of. So if I use a gerund, I would just say constructing the building. But because we have of, I'm going to use construction. I'm going to use the original noun. Let's look at number 2. Now it's either going to be C or D. We know that because focus on is a preposition and needs to be followed by a noun. Now, if I maintain my health, it is important. So maintaining my health is important. There is no preposition, so I'm going to use maintaining their health. So I'll use D. If I used maintenance, it would have to be maintenance of their health. But there is no of, so I am picking D. Let's look at one last one. All right, so here the answer is D. Because if I use a gerund, I would just say organizing all the historical data. However, I have of. And so I'm going to say organization of all the historical data. All right, so these are 3 key ToEIC tips. These will help you improve your score. Make sure to review this. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.